Hello, I'm Aldrich, and I work as a developer advocate at Elastic. My Twitter is on there at crazy, but what developer advocate means is that I get paid to care really deeply about our community, and these are some of the lessons I've learned from operating like complex computer systems and how I think they apply to humans in the community that are there too. First, definitions and assumptions. Complex systems are wholly unknowable. You can't really understand the whole thing. They're always changing, so the same input doesn't always give you the same output because stuff's moving when you're not looking at it. These are the literal definitions of the initialisms we're talking about. The title of my talk talks about fallout and relationship because I want to frame it around people, not just the systems we have here. I'm also assuming that we want to repair them faster, not avoid failure. That's just an assumption. I don't have a lot of time to back that up. So come talk to me about it. Also asserting there's no root cause to failures in complex systems and relationships by extension. There's a lot of things that happen for stuff to break really bad, and we can't point at one specific moment that causes issues. When we try to do that and plan for known problems, we build rigid structures, we build a lot of no, and when you have a lot of no, people find ways to work around the no, and you get tech debt and kludge and like all these problems building up in the background. And if you have enough problems and enough weak points in your system, you get catastrophic failure. Thank you. So yeah, the tech debt comes due, like just like your credit card debt, like that bill's there, and the more you add onto it without paying it off, it becomes a problem. And this is true of our relationships, right? Like if you have a transaction with someone that detracts from either side of that, like that comes due at some point. Like that needs to be fixed, or else you eventually have problems in that relationship long term as that builds up. And that's okay. So we can have these problems where we accidentally hurt people, we have failures, because experience with failure is how we get better at it. When you know how hard you can push your computer before it breaks, you can operate at peak capacity. And the same is true of people. If I know when it's important to pull back and like conserve our error budget, or when I need to push someone out of their comfort zone to really help them grow, you can do a lot more meaningful things and become better people and build stronger community in that. So first requirement is blameless culture. This is why I talk about no root cause. If you're in a culture where you're pointing fingers all the time and looking to single out an individual every time, none of the rest of the tools matter, because that's going to be your big problem. We need to understand and try and build better systems. So at Elastic, I work on a team currently of 14 people in 10 countries and 8 time zones. Communication's hard. We don't all speak English primarily, and we talk a lot through Slack. So chance of misunderstanding is pretty high. We have to assume good intent. So if I say something or someone else says something that doesn't sit right, we have to first say, hey, this is how it sounded to me. Did you mean that? Like, how can we fix this? But that asynchronous text communication also is kind of translating from one person to the next. So we have a /Zoom command in our Slack where we can instantly set up a video chat and talk to each other face to face, hear voices, and make sure we're communicating clearly. This is part of it too. Like having a conversation back and forth and making sure the other person's receiving that is way better than like subtweeting about it. So this avoids problems of feeling like you're not being heard, right? That you're just shouting into the dark and it's not getting anywhere. This is a really good turn of phrase. Like what you're saying is, you know, my code reviews didn't pass again and I've got to rewrite it. But what I'm hearing is I don't belong on the team, right? You're acknowledging verbatim that wasn't said, but you're also talking about the impact that has. And difficult conversations still have conflict, right? We're not going to eliminate conflict from any human situation. So there's a tooling called nonviolent communication that's about troubleshooting those incidents, right? A conflict is an incident. So if we're going to troubleshoot it, we want to break it down into component parts. We want to start with observations, like what did we actually see occur? These aren't judgments. They're not what you think another person thought, but what can you actually observe? Feelings are things that are like visceral, so you can't feel like you were abandoned or let down because that's like an action that someone did, but you can feel sad, you can feel scared, you can feel ashamed of things. And then the needs, usually these are where the feelings are coming from. If I'm not getting the autonomy I need, right? If I'm feeling like I have to do things a certain way and not being able to stretch on my own, or that my work doesn't have impact, like that's a need that needs to be met for me. And finally, you can ask requests of the other person and say, hey, could you do this instead? Or could you do this? And it's a request, it's not a demand, because that introduces like other problems of power imbalance to that conversation. So there's a lot more on this. So here are some resources to follow. I'll post my slides after as well. You can look up there and talk to me after. We'll do an open space and all that. Thanks.